presentation of the FY25 budget. Ms. Andrews, come on down.
Good evening, everybody.
Hello.
Tonight we want to present to you the FY25 budget for the Odessa School District. The next few slides will highlight the estimated revenues and expenditures, a look at some of the historical data, and career ladder within the district. The budget narrative will also contain this information as well as more details per section. First, we'll look at the district's revenues and expenditures for FY25. Our operating revenues is estimated at $25,021,103. Our operating expenditures is estimated at $25,403,614. Operating contains Fund 1 and Fund 2. Fund 1 is daily expenses and classified staff salaries, as which are also include their associated benefits. Fund 2 is our certified staff salaries and their associated benefits. The operating expenditures for the FY25 are greater than their FY25 revenues, reflecting a deficit budget. We estimate that our FY25 revenues will be $27,177,406. The state of Missouri legislature proposed budget includes full funding of the basic formula and transportation. Full funding is 75% of our reimbursable transportation miles for the district. The assessed valuation reflects an increase to continued trends of actuals from FY23 and 24. We estimate that our FY25 expenditures to be $32,028,976. Expenditures are higher for FY25 as they include the salary increases for all staff, continuation of career ladder, 2 instructional coaches, 2 additional process coordinators, and potential expenditures for the multi-purpose building. The current and future debt service payments are shown in this table. Each yearly payment includes both interest and principal payments. Our current active bonds are Series 2020, Series 2021, and our newest bond, Series 2022. Series 2020 is the refunding of Series 2012. Series 2021 is the refunding of the 2017 bond. Next, we will highlight some historical data for the district. We are showing a brief history of the district's tax rate, assessed valuation, and new construction estimates. This shows the trend of assessed valuation increasing each year, which is why we are continuing to estimate an increase for FY25. The collection percentage is the actual percent of current and delinquent taxes collected in that fiscal year, along with the revenue generated from those taxes. The FY24 collection percentage and revenues are year-to-date information. Career Ladder is a program that was brought back to the district in 2022. The state allocated funds and increased the state portion of contributions, making it an option for districts to bring back the program. We have participated the last 2 years and plan to continue participating in this program for the next fiscal year. Tonight, I just wanted to showcase some of the data for the last 2 years. In 2022 and 23, we had 100 participants, and the total cost was $428,000. This past year, we had an increase of participants to 104 and an increase in total cost of $446,500. The number of participants by building has changed between year 2 and year 1, but still shows a steady involvement in the program. I have also highlighted the cost per building for the last 2 years. The line item detail of the district's revenues and expenditures is included at the end of the budget narrative for your review, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Yeah, what's our unrestricted balance? Not percentage, ballpark dollar figure.
11 million.
Okay. Thank you. That'll take us from low 50s to high 20s then on unrestricted reserve.
Yeah, we won't drop down that low. It just kind of depends on. Next month we'll come back and talk about transfers.
Yeah.
Some potential transfers to cover some expenses, which will affect that. That 11 is not exact, but
Sure.
Close to.
Sure.
And that gives us a chance to be very accurate on where we end this year too.
Okay.
To say this is where we're at. this is the impact of this transfer, this is the impact of this transfer, that type of thing. So we could give a good depiction of what that percentage and dollar figure would be by making those transfers or not making them.
Go ahead.
Quick question. So you referenced the multi-purpose building and these numbers, like, is that just a projection of where Insight Design is kind of projecting numbers to be, or what's?
We're going to talk about that here in a little while. Dr. Fagan will talk about that. He just got those numbers within an hour of coming over here.
Okay.
That total cost is not built into this budget,
Okay.
but that kind of gets into what I was just talking about, potential transfers
To cover
to
some.
be able to cover that cost.
Okay.
Because we don't have enough fund balance to cover that cost. At this point, we will have to make transfers and look at different opportunities to pull money in.
Okay.
But there is, I think, would you put $1 million in for new construction? So there's $1 million built into it. But there's ways to, we'll have more than $1 million in fund balance. We'll know what that is next month, and then look to make the difference up with potential transfers.
And Fund 4, that's not, because that is a restricted
Yeah,
fund. It's
capital.
not
Yeah.
part of the unrestricted.
Right.
Anybody have any other questions at this point? Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, at this point, we're gonna go on in.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay, at this point, could I have a motion for approval of the agenda, please?
So
All in favor? Thank you. Could I have a motion for approval of the consent agenda items?
So
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Communication.
We have one card that I'll share tonight from Cheryl's book. It says, to the Odessa R-VII School District, thank you so much for the opportunity to work at such a special place. I thoroughly enjoyed working in such a warm and caring environment. I felt so welcome the moment I arrived. That type of culture does not just happen, it is created. I also would like to thank all of those involved in honoring my retirement and years of education at the district's retirement ceremony. Everything from the reception, the slideshow, and the generous gifts were such thoughtful gestures. Bless all those who had a hand in any of those things. I was truly moved by the sentiment. With gratitude, Cheryl Book.
Thank you, Kelsey. Okay, next up, we have our financial update.
Kat's got a few things to share.
Okay, come on.
Beyond what she already shared.
Right. The finance department will be wrapping up the end of this year fiscal projects and preparing for the ASBR submission that is due in August. End of fiscal year projects include processing the June, July, and August payrolls, processing any and all stipend payrolls, including Career Ladder, finalizing purchase orders invoicing so as many bills for this current year are invoiced and paid by June 30th, and the grant reimbursement payment requests such as title, special education, and other grants. We are also processing the third and final request for the ESSER 3 grant funds. The finance department is starting the preparations for the FY24 audit that is scheduled to be conducted on September 5th. Audit confirmations will be completed and sent to the auditors for distribution prior to June 30th. Board members should expect to receive their letters within the next few weeks. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we have our maintenance update.
So just a few things going on this summer, not near like last summer, thankfully. So recently, the central office piers, that project was completed the week of Memorial Day. Did a good job, and we have some new cracks because now the building's back where it's supposed to be. So we'll work on getting those fixed. A couple other bigger things going on. We've got like a middle school grease trap in the kitchen, also some flooring here in the kitchen at the high school. Food service things going on. We're going to be working to but enlarge Mackenzie's area, athletic trainer. She's kind of in a small spot, so we're going to cut into a adjacent closet and enlarge her space for her. That's on the books. Classroom cleaning, floor refinishing, the summer stuff is off to a really good start. The custodians have started off strong this year, so we're glad to see that in all the buildings. And if you notice down the halls, that's what all the buildings look like. But doing a good job. And Mike is working on getting equipment inventory, preventative maintenance items. We've talked a little bit about the maintenance plan that you guys will see in August, a more detailed, start getting everything, whether it be in spreadsheets or in a management software. He's kind of exploring some of those options too, to really start getting a good handle on what we have, where it is, and get the preventative maintenance side built up to where it really should be. And then some upcoming things too. We've still got a sewer line repair that you might see going on down by the child care center. The exterior lighting at the buildings will be on for this summer as well. So a lot going on.
He didn't want to steal my thunder.
Oh, it's
Okay, next up, we have our superintendent's report.
Yeah, just a couple things. Currently, right now with summer school, we have 357 elementary and middle school students. At the high school, there are 73 in the morning session, 48 in the afternoon. Additionally, at the high school, we have 105 taking virtual classes in June and 67 in July. Overall, the enrollment is similar to what we've had in past years. Really what we've seen is a flip in seated versus virtual over the last 2 years. If you go back 5 years, we had just a handful of virtual students, but far more in-seat. Now we've flipped to not a lot of in-seat students. In fact, 48 in the afternoon session, but, over 170 that are doing virtual over the course of the summer. So numbers are about the same. It's just kind of the platform is changing a little bit. It allows them to still work and take classes or whatever they want to do. The walking trail, if you haven't seen it yet, CAT Construction has started working on and made quick work of the walking trail that will loop around the practice fields on the south side of the campus. Funding for this was provided through the ESSER staff recruitment and retention grant. So it'll be there's a picture of it from today, late today even. So
John, the virtual high school courses, are those just canned classes that they can log in anytime and complete their coursework, or is it a teacher that is teaching at 9 a.m. Through like Google Meet?
we use Launch, and they do have a teacher who teaches each class. A Missouri teacher Missouri certified, doesn't necessarily anymore have to be in Missouri, but Missouri certified teacher who teaches each class. And they do have a regular time where they are on and providing assistance or doing things, but they don't have to log on if they don't need the assistance. If they can just work through the class without the assistance, they can do that.
So are we paying the same amount to like this virtual educator as we would like an OHS staff member, or is it cheaper, more expensive?
It's about a break even,
Okay.
because we don't pay that staff member, we're paying the class. We're paying for the student to take the class.
Okay.
So it's, the cost is about the same to do it.
So it has like a pre-recorded video that they watch or something with the teacher.
Usually.
And then if they have questions, the teacher's on from like this time to this time.
Or some of them will have that, and they'll, you can set up a time that's outside of that window, or there's a lot of different options that teachers offer when they're using those virtual platforms.
No, during
Yeah, it
COVID,
doesn't matter. I'm just curious.
during COVID, we
Online
had tutoring sessions here set up for people. Are we doing that for summer school? Or is that like,
No, we haven't.
okay.
But a lot of the kids that are doing virtual are ones that are, they know what to expect.
So, John, are some of these classes that are virtual, do we offer them in seat also? The same class?
Not necessarily during the summer now.
Okay.
Not always. Some of them, sometimes, they might be taking, I know my son's taking health and computer apps. He's taking them in seat right now, couple years ago. My daughter took them, but she took them virtually.
That's why I was asking if it was I mean, are these classes that we don't offer, or are these classes that we do offer, but they decided to take virtual?
When you look at the virtual catalog, they have a entire bank of classes that they offer. So it could be a class that we're not offering. If somebody wanted to take Spanish right now, as an example.
Yeah.
We're not offering a summer Spanish class, but they want to take it and do it over the summer, they could do that through virtual platform.
But there's also Mandarin Chinese. I mean,
Yeah, they could take a class that we don't offer like that.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a cool way to kind of, well, if someone's wanting to expedite their high school education. When I was in school, it was only like personal finance and one other thing. So you could really knock out a lot of stuff
Luke did.
in the summer if you wanted to. Yeah.
Luke was finished with his coursework mid-semester, late junior year.
Yeah.
And all he had to do was his tech and internship.
Okay. Are you finished?
Yes.
Okay. Next up is our 2024-25 school year calendar.
Yeah, so with the passage of Senate Bill 727, there was an financial incentive of 1% for additional foundation formula dollars for having a student attendance calendar of 169 days or more. Based on this year's formula, that would be an estimate of about $73,000 that the district would receive if the calendar was revised to add the additional 8 days next year, because currently we have 161 on our calendar. In order to do this, it would obviously have to be revised and would reduce the number of professional development days significantly during the school year. Another consideration in this is the additional cost of adding those days back in, the operational cost. Just the transportation is estimated to be at least $50,000 for those additional 8 days, plus the building operation cost on top of that. So you wouldn't realize the entire $73,000 that you would benefit from the 1%. As a point of discussion, we did put together what a calendar would look like if we did go with 169 days, and it was included in your packet as well as what our calendar is. And we'll just open that up to any discussion if that's something the board would like for us to change.
What was the thought process behind 727, just to get more instruction days for the students? Is that why they did this, to encourage districts to get more seat time?
I think as much as anything, this is just my opinion, is to try to get schools to not do a 4-day work week.
Oh,
And John, we didn't know this information when the calendar committee was gathering it.
This was something that was even added late to the bill.
My opinion on this, whether I'm sure there's some positives. The first thing that I think we as a group, even though that, John, we have implemented more hours into the day for the teachers. And it may equal out in time, but if we add 8 days to our teachers, we all talk about morale and everything else, we would have to give our teachers something. And what's that?
3 days.
Well,
3 days to the teachers.
Yeah,
Once
in order
every
to get the 8 days, the 3 days would come from the additional minutes that we added
Right.
last year that we would take away. The additional 5 days would come from PD days that,
Right.
we've already kind of got some plans for.
So you're saying more days, and then also they lose on their professional development too.
And,
Yes.
and I think we would owe them some financially.
Yeah.
And I also think this is a point, something I'm gonna say is being on the board, there's a lot of times we make decisions on the fly. We try not to, but we have to. And I think this is one decision that if we want to do, I think we need to wait till the following year and do it. I think we're going into the next year. I mean, it's going to be one of those deals that we're running into ourselves here trying to make this work.
Perception is the rule. And the perception would be we loved additional days on for a quick grab.
Yeah, I like the idea of more seat time, but I don't like the idea of less professional development.
I just like the time of letting the teachers on the calendar committee make their own determination. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're what, only talking, what, $23,000 when you add in that $50,000 estimation for transportation
Minus utilities.
minus utilities. Yeah, so,
Yeah.
I mean, you're not, to me, yeah, I agree. I think morale is a better payout than, you know, just a little chunk of money, so. And like I said, I think the teachers need those PD days. I think they need time to be able to
I,
work through.
I just think this is a discussion we have next year before we do the calendar. Not right now before the calendar goes into place. So,
Is there any chance that Senate Bill 727 will get modified next year, or will this be effective next year as well?
It's in effect the second year incentive, so the first year incentive, because it would get paid out the following year. So they look at the previous year's calendar to determine whether you qualify. So the following year, it is 2% that year. So-
Next year, if we modify our calendar, then we could make 2% as opposed to the 1% that's proposed here.
Correct, 2% the following year, 26, 27
Okay,
is when that would be paid out.
so if we change it next year, then we would have a bigger payout.
What are your thoughts?
I'm gonna ask a silly question. Funding for this incentive, is it coming out of general revenue?
Yes.
They'll have to rob Peter to pay Paul.
What are your thoughts?
I would like to leave the calendar as it is. We've got professional development things set in play for those days. We would have to go back to the table and scrap some of those things that, and some of the time that Chad was referencing, one of the things that was mentioned was having more teacher time. This would eliminate a lot of what we have planned for them at this point.
Like I said, I mean, teachers do enough work on their own personal time that I think taking away that some potential time they have in their classroom would just be ridiculous, so.
We've already approved the calendar.
That was back in the winter. And we'll do it again. We'll have these conversations in the fall.
Yeah.
Leading up to.
December, January.
is everybody good with that? Okay. Next up, we have the 2024-25 staff back to school schedule.
Yeah, I included this just so you guys would have an opportunity to review it. It'll go out to staff members in advance of coming back to school. Administrative teams work through a lot of these things. We've got the PD days leading up to the start of school on August 21st. It'll be here before we know it.
Can you send out just a reminder to us the closer we get to
Oh,
August? Okay,
Yeah, we will.
people like me tend to forget, so.
Oh, I wouldn't be upset if it were sent a calendar invite via email.
You mean text message?
That, one of them too.
Multiple forms.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
It's a great event for
Yeah.
new guys. It's fun to be around, so. The back to school stuff.
Okay. Next up, we have the I-Ready diagnostic.
Yeah. Smith and Dr.
Come
McLean.
on down.
Good stuff.
Good evening. Kind of work out here for you. I really love some of this data that we have with this new toy, so to speak. I read it. In your packet, you're going to see a graphic. I'm going to start with that. There's two pieces we really want to present to you guys this evening. One's going to be about growth, and then the other one will be just kind of the data that we had from our final diagnostics. So I really feel like this discussion has been one that we've been having with our administrative team in the effect of trying to get them to be prepared to have those discussions with their teachers next year. So this year when we brought in the tool, we wanted to have some form of an incentive or some form of a measurable and something we hadn't done before so that we can understand it and talk about it, because the more we talk about it, the more we look at the data, the more it's going to be impactful for what we want to do. Too often in education, maybe we buy a program, but we don't supervise it, we don't pay attention to it, and then it kind of doesn't get its full use. We didn't want that with this type of purchase. So we started with some incentives when it came to student growth. And we've had some students here that came in maybe from Macquarie, and we talked about the student that had 200% growth and 87% growth. Well, what does that mean? So if you look at your board packet, Tia Saxon, our instructional technology coach, kind of came up with this graphic. And what we're trying to explain is, at the very beginning of the year, very beginning of next year, all students in the district will be assessed with this diagnostic screener. And every student, and I'll use my son as a reference, like if Oaks was tested in ELA, if Oaks was tested in math, he'll either be at grade level, above grade level, or below grade level. One of those three things. And that's what this graphic is supposed to show, is that if he's sixth grade reading, grade level, ideally he'd be in the blue range. Well, no matter where the students landed, we still should have the ability to move the student through growth and what we will call typical growth. So if a student starts the year below grade level, which is typical, because a fifth grader moving into sixth grade and starting at the beginning of August is usually going to be behind because they have the whole year of learning ahead of them. So what we have found by tracking growth is if a student starts below grade level, the computer, the AI component, projects what typical growth should be for the student by the end of the year. If they start the year below grade level and they're on the yellow line and they hit typical growth, they still end up below grade level. So we're happy that growth occurred, but we still have to find out ways to get the student back onto grade level learning if they started the year below what is supposed to be understood according to the state of Missouri with grade level standards. If the student didn't meet typical growth, they actually moved further away from the standard. We also celebrated in the classroom, like we had the students here from Macquarie that had like 200 and 300% growth. That's kind of like your stretch growth. That's massive gains. And the idea is any student that's below grade level, if you can get stretch growth, that's more of the green, now you're trending back on to track, so to speak, with the idea that all students can learn at grade level or above, being kind of the philosophy I want to operate with. Is we believe this, we're always going to be working in tow with that. So if the student is on grade level, we're going to keep them on grade level. If the student isn't, we're going to keep them on grade level as best we can, but maybe backfill the lack of understanding from maybe learning loss due to COVID or just other issues. Students move around and maybe they missed important parts. So this tool kind of gave us that. And I wanted to provide that as a graphic if you had any questions, because the first two slides we're going to review are going to be strictly about growth and explain a little bit what we did with the district this year. Yes, sir.
Just talk about the importance of growth in the MSIP 6 world compared to MSIP 5. Just the scoring that's...
It's kind of a nice byproduct of this system in talking so much about growth. Again, if we talk about it and we pay attention to it, then action actually happens. So our APR score with our MSIP, we talked about that. It now doesn't just measure every one of our kids and their ability based on excellence. It also measures if they grew. So that's a big part of our scorecard with the state of Missouri through APR and MSIP as well. So it doesn't matter if they're below grade level, but if they make significant stretch growth, which this tool helps us be efficient at, it'll help some of our metrics and how we're graded as well. So there's a lot of AI components to this developed at the University of Missouri, but this tool, the R-VII tool, I think helped leapfrog us in 1 year, really ahead of some things that I saw that we just were lacking and we didn't know it maybe. Now we have data. It's kind of like going to the doctor and getting your physical, and now you have some real data to decide how I want to make changes to my lifestyle versus just completing a survey and how you feel. That's kind of the difference between where we were before to where we are now, in my opinion. If you don't, can you go to the next slide? Is that on? Okay, that's fine. The next slide will show our incentive growth that we had with the buildings this year, and I wanted to share that with you all. I'm not saying that this would be the best thing for next year, but we tried to make this something that everybody could achieve at. So we said if first grade could have 100% of their kids meet, not 100%, if they could get typical growth to be 100% or more, we would incentivize them with a meal, or we had a beach blanket, and we would also celebrate the ones that had the biggest gain. So what we saw here is this last incentive growth piece. Our biggest winners were 8th grade math, where their average growth of typical growth was at 167%, and we really celebrated that so that hopefully they continue with that trend into next year. And then our largest growth with reading was out of that 5th grade group. What this has done by measuring that this year is it started great conversations among our admin team, like why was 5th grade so successful at this? Amanda, you can speak to a little bit of what 5th grade did since you were in that
Yeah,
building.
so in 5th grade, we actually had a teacher who came from a district prior who they had I-READY implemented for a number of years, and so we relied heavily on her. She's had dove into the data and used it to instruct the kids in small group and whole group as well. So in 5th grade, in all grade levels and upper, we had grade level teams met every single week after school for about 45 minutes to an hour, and the first thing that they had on their agenda, 5th grade started this, was looking at I-READY data. So every teacher came with their computer, they logged into I-READY, they got in, they saw diagnostic once that was done, and then they also went into every single student's learning path and looked to see, are they passing lessons? Okay, are they passing all of these, I guess, more simple lessons? Do we need to bump them up? Or they're failing these simple lessons. I need to get in and I need to intervene. And so they were doing that every single week. They were meeting with kids every single week, and they saw a ton of growth because they're looking at the data and they're using that data to maximize their instruction. So that was a really big incentive, and especially 5th grade in reading, they had 140% growth. So we loved those celebrations.
What was that teacher's name?
The one where she came from?
Yeah, where she helped, the one that helped.
Miss Williams.
Miss Williams.
Taylor Williams.
So,
Where'd she come from?
Grandview.
it's good stuff. It was
So
a
when you
huge
can,
resource for us to have her.
when you combine that I-READY diagnostic and the data with the instructional skills that Letters provides,
Huge.
have a potential growth we're essentially sharpening our teachers' saws.
100%. Especially in reading, because they're learning the vocabulary and the science of reading through letters, and so they're seeing that in I-READY, and they can pinpoint that specific skill that student's missing. So they're going in, they're pulling small groups, and so once we saw success with that in 5th grade, we have 3rd and 4th grade doing that as well.
Can you speak to 8th grade math being so successful? I feel like the data that we saw throughout the year was the 8th grade students, it was really hard to encourage them to try on the test. So can you just speak to why they had such a strong growth?
You might know a little bit more than I. They put in more incentives to kind of you have to get the students buy-in. Mm-hmm. If there's no reason for them to be doing these things, why are they putting in the effort? So correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that they kind of used it as an academic focused grade. So their performance was kind of a part of the grade that they were receiving. So, hey, I want to pass this class. I need a good grade, so I'm going to put in the effort.
I think there was probably a lot of factors at play, and I'm going to give a lot of credit to the admin and that team of teachers. They really didn't have a lot of success at our midpoint check. We had an incentive, and they didn't earn that incentive, but then they really turned it around. But I think that's what's neat about having these types of checks at the mid-year and at the end of the year is, hey, what are we doing wrong and what can we try differently? So I think they maximized their time a little more effectively because they have like 80-minute classes. So they were still teaching at grade level, but they were using the tool to go back and fill buckets. They really challenged the kids. Like, you're getting beat by the 3rd graders. I heard that several times. That motivated. So I'll give a credit to the teachers for, hey, our grade card wasn't good. Let's go try to do something different and get better at that. So that was really encouraging to see. And at the same time, I think the admin team's leading some of the other grade levels to say, hey, why are we not consistent here? What's going on? Are we teaching at the same time? Do we need to adjust our pacing guide? So the data is driving the decision making instead of just subjective feeling.
I'm just proud of them for buckling down because I do recall at our mid-year review, it was like, what's going on with eighth grade? And then to see such substantial growth. I'm proud of that group of teachers and students alike for really focusing.
Yeah, that's huge.
There's a lot of positives. We can celebrate growth while at the same time we continue to talk about grade level instruction and the belief and the mindset that all students can learn at grade level or above. So you're going to see now the final diagnostic data piece if you want to look through that. It's overlaid with the initial, so you'll be able to see at the very beginning of the year when we first tested everybody, we have those colors. If it's the dark green, it means they were a grade level ahead. Regular green, they're on grade level. Yellow, 1 grade level behind. Red, behind or 2 behind. Am I saying that correctly? I might have messed up there. But you can compare the schools spring to fall. Because throughout the year, they're entitled to learn the grade level content, and in theory, you're supposed to move and decrease the amount of people that are below grade level. So we still could have had a student, if you see this chart again at the beginning, if they're below grade level in the beginning, they can still meet growth, but still finish below grade level. So then that's the new challenge for the Odessa School District, is how do we get them back onto grade level at the same time celebrating growth? And how do we and where do we backfill? Where's the biggest bang for our buck based upon their learning loss or whatever holes they have in their learning? These tools are helping us become more efficient with that. So that data is for you guys to review. It even breaks down to the specific grades as
We
well.
could sit here all day and go through all the numbers, and I mean, iReady is so cool because you can break it down so far. So I mean, I was just playing around the other day, breaking it down. We've actually met with a couple buildings, the administrators there. We looked at these reports. We saw the growth. We saw the successes. I mean, Macquarie, 4% were on grade level at the beginning of the year. 41% are above grade level at the end of the year. So a total of 70%. So lots and lots of growth. So what Dr. McClain and I met with the administrators is, okay, what's next? What are we going to do next? We've seen all of this growth. We've got a year under our belt. We do have a percentage that we need to tackle. We need to go intervene with some of these students who are 1 or more grade levels below. So we've started those conversations, and we're going to really focus on Tier 1 instruction and interventions next year, and that's really going to be the focus.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, guys. Thank you.
Okay. Next up is our July 2024 board meeting date.
Yeah, if there's no conflict, I would like to entertain the possibility of moving that meeting, the regular meeting, from the 2nd to the 3rd Tuesday, which would be the 16th. The 2nd Tuesday is obviously pretty early with the end of the year, just a few days before that. And Kat talked about all the things that are going on right now in the next 19 days that we're trying to get wrapped up. But the additional week would give the business department more time to get these processes completed before the July board meeting. So,
I'll be out of town, but I can probably be remote in, or if it's okay if I match.
okay.
I mean, I'm fine missing
If
it.
you're okay with us still having the meeting.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
The plan according, Dr. Fagan will be out as well, so we'll take care of his
We're
stuff.
going to the same place. Where are you going? Oh, okay, I'm not going.
Next up, we have a multi-purpose facility.
Dr. Fagan.
All right, so you've got a lot of information there, so I would be happy to try to answer any questions out of that that you have. Like Dr. Odinger mentioned, about 4 o'clock, 3:30, 4 o'clock, I did get finally the cost estimates from yes, they've been waiting for several folks. So I'm trying to think what picture you see there. There's 3 prices, and it boils down to where the building's located, and it's because of the structural, because of snow load on the existing metal building that's there. So there's one price for if you put it right up against the building, and then there's another price if it's 10 feet away, and another price if it's 20 feet away, all to do with snow drift and engineering things that unfortunately Cole's not here to answer.
But he has seen.
But he has seen. So without alternates, and I'll talk about the alternates in a minute, but just the base building, concrete, metal, windows, roofing, interior walls, doors, mechanical, and all the site work. The option to put it right up against the building is $2,220,000 and some change. These are rough numbers. The one to put it 10 feet away, 2.21 million, and the one to put it 20 feet away, 2.19 million. So it actually gets a little cheaper as you get further away because you're not reinforcing the existing building. That's why it's cheaper.
So it's only $30,000 difference.
Yes, but so it's away from the metal building. It's just moving it to the west. All of those options are still hooked to the block building on
Is
the
that
north,
still
where the locker
accommodating?
rooms are.
Okay, so that's still accommodating.
Yes, they all still are there. It's just from the metal building. It gets cheaper if you move it away. The 20-foot option, there becomes a little vestibule right there on that corner to connect up with the hallway. So, I mean, it's, like you said, it's only $30,000, but it's $30,000.
Yeah. No bleachers?
So the alternates that we would put in would include sports flooring, the sports equipment, any sports equipment that hangs from the ceiling. So basically everything except the volleyball net. The sleeves are there, but we would just purchase volleyball nets. So this equipment would be the basketball goals, batting cages, wall pads at the ends, those kind of things. Bleachers, the brick wainscot, 8-foot tall, impact resistant liner panel. So your first 8 feet on the inside of the building to go along where there would be impact. And then the existing building renovations, which is the hooking it up to the building. Those are all alternates. The total of the alternates is just under 700,000.
With it being 20 feet west of the metal building, does that bump into the drive that runs north and south right now?
It doesn't.
Okay.
It obviously gets it closer, but there's
Yeah.
still room there.
Okay.
The only difference on that end, really, other than the distance there, and you don't have that picture. The picture you have, the renderings, is the 10-foot option and all the blueprints. So the 20-foot would just put that door on that northwest corner. It would put it on that north-facing wall instead of on the west-facing wall, the way it matches up with that sidewalk. So there still is plenty of room over there.
Discussions? I guess we can, if we decide to, we could break the alternates down to just certain parts of that. Like just bleachers or just,
So when they put the bid spec together, because it'll come back next month for the board to approve the bid spec before it goes out.
Right.
And each of those different things will be listed as a alternate. So it's kind of like an à la carte. When the bid comes back in, if you want to put just the bleachers in, you can, or you don't have to, or you can do just the wall panel, or you can do all of it. You can accept some or all of the, or none of the alternates.
gotcha.
Either way, none of this is in the budget projection we saw.
Part of the expense is, but we'll be able to show you where the remaining funds would come from through transfers next month.
I know we talked about like for the marketing room, possibly knocking out that wall and using the storage room there for classroom space and utilizing that storage space in one of the storage closets in that multipurpose room. Did you have any conversations with them on, I mean,
Not about,
in the grand scheme of things, I don't think that's gonna amount to a whole lot, but
no.
I just
Are you asking
wonder,
if I talked with them like about removing,
yeah,
modifying that room? I didn't.
okay.
If I remember right, we went in there, and that might even be a stud wall. For some reason, we didn't, because we thought, oh, we can do that.
Okay.
Kind of, but I don't quote me on that.
Okay.
Wall, but yeah.
Yeah, I just kinda, I'm a little concerned about the size of the marketing room. Once we add that corridor, I know we're taking out that closet that's already in there, but
That classroom's moving to.
Yeah.
is it, okay,
Mr. Shepherd's already been working with
Relocating.
teachers that are relocating
okay.
where they're going to.
Any other questions?
So next month, will we be asked to approve one of the 3 base bids?
So what are, I guess really what I would need as far as this discussion would be, no, one of those will be what they'll draw up. So how, like, and really the only difference is the location. What are thoughts, feelings about butting it up compared to moving it out? Does
Yeah,
anybody?
pros and cons.
Yeah, I mean,
So they feel
Is there a
like
little bit of a
at a
liability
20-foot
to that?
distance, it's gonna give them a lot, there's gonna be a lot better as far as like snow removal.
so
and snow-
those distances are all calculated distances by the structural engineers. And whatever the current code is of the feet and the snow load, has to do with the height of the current building compared to the height of the new building.
Right,
And
build up
build
and everything, yeah.
So those are all calculated by them.
So
That's
their
what-
recommendation would probably be the 20 feet is what they would
Yeah,
probably say.
or the others getting into the ceiling of the existing building and putting in reinforcements between the purlins on that building.
But if it's 20 foot away, those aren't covered walkways. We're sending kids outside to go inside.
No, so if it's 20 feet away on the northeast corner,
Uh-huh.
so that puts the building past the current marketing.
Right.
But that price includes a vestibule that becomes part of that new building. So there's a piece of the new building that goes out and connects up, so it's all still inside.
Okay.
And the locker room connections are still there too, so it's not gonna change any of that.
Okay.
So, yeah, which, that was my biggest thing,
Yeah.
but if that doesn't change, then you might as well save money and, you know, and it sounds like it's a better idea anyways by the structural engineer, so. That's the route. I
To
would
clarify for you, so next month, what we would ask is you approve the plan to put out to bid.
I just wanted to make sure that we had a decision made on which, next to the building, 10 feet or 20 feet, so that we
Right.
were
We need-
requesting the correct thing.
Yeah, we need to know that so we can tell them for the bid specified.
On the agenda, can you put the reserve fund balances and the transfers before?
Yeah,
Thank
we,
you.
So you're saying
we've already talked about
Okay,
that.
thank you.
building would move 20 feet away, so go to the west.
To the west.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's what I would have been pursued in.
I think that we need to be a good steward of money, but at the same time, how does that look? Is it an issue having that little pocket back in there?
What's that gonna be? Grass?
Is it gonna be present an issue later on? Like, how close is it gonna be to the road that goes north and south? If, like, say, we do construction in the future in a semi, I guess they can always come straight, they don't necessarily have to turn there, but would they hit the building?
Will be a blind spot for vapors, you know that.
Yeah. Definitely be a blind spot for kids to get in trouble.
Well, we'd put cameras there.
Is it gonna be awkwardly close to that road, you know?
As far as the building hugging the road by
Mhm.
moving it 20 feet away, it definitely puts it closer
Yeah, that road that runs behind the
behind the
school.
high school. It does, in that rendering that shows it 10 feet, it's not right next to it yet, but it's,
Is it one of those situations where somebody comes along later, why in the heck would they just not connect that building?
well, that question will get asked anyway, because
Yeah.
the
Hindsight's
the
20/20.
conversation of structural necessity is gonna go away really quick.
Yeah.
we'll make sure on that road, I mean, it's I think the only concern could end up being on that far southwest corner, on the turn, you know, so we'll look at that.
I wouldn't want it to be awkward, spend all that money, and it's kind of like, what the heck?
And the space between the buildings, I'm not concerned about that personally, because I think we put something along the south side of it to block line of sight. But then, to me, that could even become a courtyard space from inside the existing building. You know, have an area, picnic tables, things like that. Would be a nice use for it. It could also be storage for outside things as well. I think we can block that off easy enough from the exterior that wouldn't be a concern.
Well, I'm just looking at the bird's eye view of the, you know, the design or whatever. I mean, we've got room between the fence if we need to push that alley a little further to the west to make room, you know, for that 20 feet space or extra 10 feet space, I guess, really.
It is flat there. You could go a little further.
Yeah, you could expand that out just a little bit.
Transformer along there somewhere, but you're saying if it got too close, we felt like
Yeah,
we needed to
it looks like we've got room there to push that further to the west anyways. So I'd say those guys know what they're talking about and they know what they're doing, so if they're recommending a certain option, then I mean, I trust them, so.
Any other questions? Yes. Guess this is something we just mull around until next month. Do you need anything? You don't really need a direction tonight, do you?
Well, the only thing in order to finish a bid spec, as far as we do need to know what would the board want specific to the location of the building, next to it, 10 feet away or 20 feet away.
Yeah, that'd be.
What is the price difference between 10, 20 again?
20,000?
Yeah,
20,000 probably, wouldn't it? Right around
21.9 and 20, or 2,
2.21, 2.1.
I'm gonna just say, whatever makes you happy, right? I don't have an opinion on building issues up.
Whatever.
Well, I just, 20 foot,
I'm just thinking out loud.
at least gives you space in there. You get to having a building 10 foot away from another one. I mean,
Yeah,
what
it's
are you gonna
It's
do?
a
with
weird,
that?
yeah.
You know,
Yeah, because
what is that
Three of
going
it's
to
gonna
be?
have overhang from the other building
Mhm.
over it too, so you're very limited.
We'll make sure that it's not,
I don't know how they do it.
if we look at transfers, if we look at pushing it 20 feet away, make sure that it's not going to be impeded by that road. As far as looks, there's enough buildings at different depths on the front and back of that building. I don't know that it would look all that strange. It's always going to look like an addition, but making sure that it doesn't impede the road, because we don't want it getting hit or anything like that. So,
Can you have insight, can they do just kind of like another bird's eye drawing or whatever of what that alley would look like if they needed to push that closer to the, you know, and kind of how
Probably
much
you would
room?
get that ahead of time, because if that's, you know, they're gonna be modifying these anyway.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, if there's any modification to that back alleyway, if they can include that on the next drawing, if that's the direction everybody wants them to go.
So what are we saying here? What are we wanting to, are we gonna try to go 20 feet or 10 feet or what? What's everybody wanna do?
20, the cheapest option.
That's what I was saying. I mean, we go 20. Everybody good with that? Unless we find a problem with it being in the middle of that road or something. Okay.
And I'll try and get that information as soon as possible, too.
Okay. Okay, next up, we have our FY '24 budget revision.
Included in your board packet is a budget revision by fund for FY '24. The requested budget revisions reflect an increase in revenues that match current year-to-date amounts, which is an increase of $937,121.90. This brings our FY '24 revenues to $28,852,401.45. Of this, the operating revenue is $25,818,162.03. We are also revising expenditures in the amount of $850,240. This revision brings the FY '24 expenditures to $33,497,185.59 for all funds. The district operating expenditure budget is $25,593,795.50. We ask that the board approve the FY '24 budget revision as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Anybody have any questions? Kat? All in favor? Thank you. Okay, next up is our FY '25 budget.
The FY '25 budget is included in your board packet for review. It includes the budget letter, estimated revenues and expenditures, the revenue expenditures trends, a detailed breakdown of the current debt service payments, a historical picture of the last 10 years of the district's assessed valuation, and the tax levy rate history. We ask the board approve the FY '25 budget as presented.
So moved. Second.
Anybody have any questions for Kat at this point? Now, could I have a motion to approve? Thank you. All in favor? Okay, next up is our CSIP, Continuous School Improvement Plan, second reading.
Yeah, this was presented last month as a first reading, and if there's no additional questions, I would recommend and request board approval of this document.
We've had this for a month or two. Does anybody have any questions? Could I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Okay, next up, we have our advertising rights agreement.
Yeah, I've been approached by the Football Booster Club who would like to sell advertising to be displayed at the football stadium during the season. While this is allowed by board policy, the district legal counsel recommends approving the advertising, marketing, and promotions agreement that is included in your board packet. The agreement gives the district discretion on the signage that is being displayed.
So I have a question about this. Are
Okay.
we going to provide advertising space opportunities? And if we are, is that like in basketball, volleyball, like every sport?
I think if we do it and we allow it, and we have the ability to allow it in other spaces, we should, because then we're singling out one group over another if we didn't. So I don't know what that would look like inside the gymnasium, obviously. And in some places it might look like there is, but you wouldn't want to do it. As an example, you can put it all around the fence at the football field, but you don't want to put it in the outfield of the baseball stadium. You know, that can be distractive. So,
I know just in other school districts, obviously they have a blanket, on their scoreboards and stuff. Green Valley has at their stadium a section over by the concession stands where I guess, there's different sized advertising spaces. And of course I'm guessing like the sponsorship or whatever it is different prices to have different size, advertising space. But anyways, that was just a question I had is, are we, if we do this, are we going to basically show this is where we are going to allow that space. You know, those-
I would be happy to restrict that space as to what the board would be comfortable with, because you could see it.
That's what I'm saying. Would it be, my biggest fear is it gets out of hand.
Could,
I like the idea of it.
Yeah, I do
I
too.
support it 100%. I think it's been a
I
long
don't know
time
why we
coming.
haven't
I'm
done it
glad
yet.
that we're moving in that direction. And then, you know, my other concern would be with booster clubs, you know, we have zero control over a booster club. I mean, obviously we're gonna be able to control what they put up, but, just say in a bad instance, if something happens in a booster club where someone steals money, you know, and then, you know, it's advertising dollars that we've given the field for, you know, obviously we're not responsible for that.
Right.
But I just wanna make sure that we protect the interest of our kids, you know.
Well, and is this specifically for booster club organizations only, or is this for
Are we gonna mandate
outside?
that they actually have a board and they have like a legal entity through the state? And
I think it should be a identified
yeah,
booster club that is a organization
yeah. Instead of somebody, you know, because I know I've been part
making a
of
claim.
some groups in the past, you know, just civically, not that they were doing bad things, but they just weren't really kind of up to par on the paperwork side with the state of Missouri. So, you know, we want to make sure that any club or booster club that does that is doing things the right way.
That's actually in policy. The policy would regulate, does it not?
Well, we don't
We
really
don't regulate it.
yeah, we don't mandate it, but we could here and say, hey, we're not going to allow you to
Sure.
sell these spots if you're not.
Correct.
And would we need to modify the policy? That was a C-170P?
No, but I would modify the agreement.
Okay.
I leave the policy alone and just make sure that either Roger or Sherry,
Understand.
somebody is,
We want it to be fair too, you know, where all extracurriculars, not just a sport, you know, I don't know how that works, you know, if FBLA wants to do something or DECA or band or, you know, anything, Spanish club, like, I don't know if those have booster clubs or not, but
Some do.
yeah.
So are we wanting to permanently affix something or?
I don't think it's permanent.
Okay,
It would just be during,
Banners or.
just like
The season.
yard signs or
I
whatever.
would say,
to the fence.
I would say probably what I've seen in the past a lot of times is a banner affixed to the fence.
Okay.
You know, we do that with senior banners as an example. We
Yeah.
take them down each time.
As long as, as long as we're not putting Tostitos on our sleeves, you know, it's true, right?
Yeah.
It's a premise, we're talking about
I mean, Harrisville's done a lot of great things with
Well, yeah,
advertising
their
dollars.
their broadcasting team. is
Yeah, I mean,
amazing,
they,
so.
yeah.
So just so I'm clear, so we're talking about just school clubs only, not outside school businesses.
Like Little League football? Is that what you're
Like-
talking about?
Different businesses in the community, different, you
Why would
know,
a
say,
business want to add?
there's been some people that have approached me asking why we don't allow,
They could advertise, but they would
They'd
have to do it through the booster club.
okay.
They would make that purchase. If Chad Hubbard Construction wanted to purchase
a signage
advertising
space.
through football boosters of space, he could do that, but not through the school and not separate from a booster club that has an approved agreement.
Okay.
And I'm assuming we have some sort of agreement with like Coke, right? So obviously Coke probably wouldn't allow us to put.
Not anymore. They're-
No. Oh, okay.
Soda companies don't do agreements anymore.
Oh,
like
they
they used to.
okay.
Like I said, specifically in Harrisonville, you know, their school board, they got their local banks that contribute and they got their, you know, whatever local businesses that contribute money towards, you know, at the athletic programs or whatever it may be. And so I didn't know if that encompassed that as well, like, you know.
This would only encompass a
just
booster club
club
doing
specific.
a fundraising activity of advertising on school property.
Do you foresee this being problematic in booster
Not
clubs
with,
bickering between each other for space? like things that happen at a certain time.
I think that what I can see a problem being is
Possibly.
activities or sports that don't have booster clubs, that don't have the capability of doing what other booster clubs have. I can see that being a problem.
I don't want you being in a position or someone else, for that matter, trying to be the judge on,
Against
do
what?
this or do that, like, because we don't have a lot of guidelines, it's just people being sometimes the way they can be maybe might be problematic. I like the idea of it.
Well, some
Let's make sure we
we
dot
can
our
work-
i's and cross our
There's a
t's.
lot of things we can work through there.
Okay.
I love the idea.
I do too.
Maybe down the road, not right now, maybe in a year or two, maybe down the road, this board can talk about, there's a lot of schools that just have booster club. They don't have 25 different booster clubs. Some of them, they're real strong, some of them are weak. They have a main Odessa booster club that supports everybody. It fundraises for everybody. And there's a lot of people that's against it. And but the ones at schools like Harrisonville, they drive around a real nice bus.
Yeah, they can do more with more money. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, you see that just with districts and the amount
That's
of revenue they get
that's
from
nothing I
property.
want to scratch right now. I'm just saying, I think if you ever got this community to buy in, it would be better for our kids than having 25 different little booster clubs. You have a main booster club that supports everybody. But- Okay, at this point, I guess we need a motion to approve the advertising rights agreement.
So moved. Second.
I want to amend that to include language that the booster clubs must be identified and legal. So
Okay,
what you talked about.
So moved with the revisions.
Second.
We're on-
any other question? All in favor? Thank you. Okay. Next up, we have the 2024-25 fuel bid.
We just see assessment plan.
Oh, I did, I'm sorry, 2024-25 assessment plan. Apologize.
Amanda and Dave.
Okay, the assessment plan has been included in your packet. Missouri school districts are required to develop a testing plan that meets standards for DESI. These plans include, things like the MAP testing and our new R-VII diagnostic screeners, and other assessments that we would take on a routine schedule so that we're all aligned as a district. It's essential to ensure quality classroom instruction and learning for all students. Be a very similar plan to what we approved last year, just with updated dates.
Does anybody have any questions?
I make a motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second. All in, what's that? Okay, all in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it. Okay, next up is our fuel bid.
We received fuel bids this year from John Moore Oil Company and MFA Oil Company. You see several options that we laid out for them. The recommendation, the cheapest and the best bid would be the 1-year fixed price bid from MFA Oil Company, price of $3.22299. Locked in price, valid July 1, 24 to June 30, 25.
At least we got a couple of good bids this year.
Yeah.
Okay, if not any questions, can I have a motion to accept the fuel bid of MFA Oil Company?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Next up is our out-of-state student travel request.
Yes, we had several this month, more than you're used to seeing. That's good. One FFA trip to the southern United States, making an officer team trip, Arkansas, Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida, coming up this summer. An FBLA trip to a conference in Orlando. Another FFA trip, Washington Leadership Conference. DECA to Charlotte, North Carolina in November, and then DECA again in April to Orlando.
Roger, I was asking John, since these are competitions, they're paid for through the groups, right?
Correct. Maybe one of
The last deck.
the DECA
Is
one
the
perhaps
yeah,
is
okay.
competition.
Got you.
And FBLA, I believe, has some competition built in as well.
I just noticed it's a conference, so I just thought, okay, go ahead. You got a motion?
Yeah, motion to approve out-of-state travel request.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Okay, at this point, I need a motion to conduct a closed executive session, including any record or vote the next scheduled meeting pursuant to statutes contained in chapter 16.021 RSMO.
So moved. Second.
Roll call.
Aye.
And aye. And I need a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Good night.